Crazy. They say that. Democracy. Technocracy. Okay. They talked about I was missing an O. They talked about technocracy. They talked about technocracy. But then they called the word out. They called the concept out. But they never showed it in the story. It wasn't in the story. It was rules in the story, but they didn't connect the rules to technocracy in a way that you would expect mature writers to do it. Not that I'm a writer, not that I'm I write the best books. I mean, you would buy all my books, but they're all in my head. I create them in the car. I mean, yeah. And it's almost like, I was thinking, are these undergraduate students? Who are these people? You know, and I didn't have a chance to look them up because the refrigerator story. And Thursday I got in the car because I was going to urgent care because I've had this cough and it strangles me. That's why I didn't have a show Saturday night. I get into these coughing fits, and it's not like asthma or COPD. It's like something is at the top of my throat, and it's you know how if you ever ate something and the pepper wasn't quite dissolved, and so pepper spray or something got on the top of it, and it wakes me up. I mean, it wakes me out of a dead sleep, wakes me up in the morning. And I'm not sure what it is. And I was starting to suspect last week that maybe it's COVID. It's one of the symptoms of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about a cough, though,
you can see that my glands are swollen underneath my chin.
Yeah. Did they test you for COVID?
I never got there because the car wouldn't start.
Oh, wow.
The car went totally wacky, and I'm not feeling bad. I had fever on Wednesday, which is why I was going on Thursday to go see about it, but I haven't had fever since. But the car just totally whacked out. I had like every era message that could come across my computer on my dashboard. And it was so bad that I couldn't get the key out of the ignition. It would pop out. I couldn't put the windows back up. Even when the tow people came and charged the battery. And so in any case, I didn't get there. And it just comes on, like I can be fine. I don't have a sore throat. The glands underneath my chin, which makes me nervous because that's where around here, the lymph nodes is where they found my cancer. And so I just so anyway, I couldn't tow the car because I couldn't put the windows up and the people were closed. That's a regular cough. This other cough is something else. It's dry. It's,
Yeah. I had something like that. In the whole year, basically, of 2017, started the end of 2016. I suspect now it might have been like an early version of COVID because they could never name it. They could never diagnose it.
Yeah.
And I had a lung biopsy that year, and they still couldn't name it. And so while my doctors were fiddling around with all the testing and whatnot, I started taking this oregano oil. It comes in capsules, but I mix my own with the essential oil and like a coconut oil. It's very, very strong. After I started taking it, my cough cleared up, and I told my pulmonologist, I think I cured myself. And he laughed. Funny girl.
Wait a minute, something's going on with my camera, because even Gio looks like 15 years younger. Hey, sweetie.
Hey, how you doing?
I know. Did you have a nice birthday?
Good.
I did.
No, but I'm telling y'all doing something to your skin, and you're not telling me, and I have some kind of feelings about it.
Well,
fresh fruit.
Okay, well, I'm on the carnivore diet, so I don't. There's no help, is it? Oh, you know what? I did start taking mega doses of B1 and quercetin, along with the rest of my stuff, B12.
What's B1 for?
It's for to help your cells metabolize the energy. I was watching this video, and the doctor was talking about how because the deficiency in our food products, we not only don't get an adequate amount of B1 in the combination vitamins we get, but there's something else that we intake that actually diminishes the body's ability to use B1. I don't remember now exactly what he said, but my ears perked up when he said something about fat, allowing fat cells to release the fat for energy. I'm like, yeah, that's what I need.
I want some of that. But I was telling Michelle how young she looks and pretty.
Yeah, she looks the same as she did the day we first met on Facebook.
No, she looks younger. I swear. I haven't seen her in a couple of weeks. And I swear she looks younger. She looks like she's in her 30s, late 30s. What the hell? I mean, and then you come up here and you got skin that looks like you're in your 20s, and
Wait a minute. It's got to be a filter on the camera. There's a setting, right, that says
do I have
click
filters?
if you want it
I want
optimal.
filters. How do I get my filters?
You're looking pretty good.
You do look good, but it's one of these settings in the video. Someplace.
I'm looking at myself in my camera, and I look like I'm 90 years old. But that's because I've been outside for hours in the sun, and I stayed in the rain. It started raining, and it wasn't thundering and lightning, so I just took the time to be in the rain.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah. So Michelle, you can see this? That's all swollen.
Yeah.
Oh, what's going on?
But if it's not COVID, try the oregano oil treatment. Do some reading about it. And yeah,
I know that I have black seed oil, and since I came to Florida, I stopped, and I had forgotten what the black seed oil was for, why I started taking it.
Everything. It's for everything. Wait a minute. I was taking black seed oil, and then I switched to there's a granulated version I get from Amazon. It looks like it's like a half a pound. I sprinkle that on my salad. everything
It's
because I
so
found it was better than using pepper. And it gives you energy. And,
nasty.
well, according to Farrakhan, it cured him of his cancer. But it has, medicinal, a long list of medicinal qualities.
When I first started taking it, I just had to close my eyes and hold my breath and take it. And then I got so tired of doing that after I moved here. But I think I'm gonna have to start. Something's going on and I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So um and what I mean, I cough, it's a strangling cough. It's not coming out of my lungs. The
Hmm.
cough is not coming out of my lungs. I already told my pulmonologist in Boston, it doesn't come out of my lungs.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming out of my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that it might be GERD, GERD, but
Hmm.
I'm not having any acid reflux or anything like that.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's chronic. If I eat, something. But anyway,
Well,
y'all look good.
okay. Well, I was just gonna say that, if you thought it might be COVID, you can gargle with Listerine, the blue kind.
Hmm.
Um, they say that gets it out of the back of your throat where it likes to hide. And the other thing is, a betadine mouth rinse or a spray will
Hmm.
also help that. I
Oh,
mean, if.
well, I'm tomorrow. Um, I'm gonna go and to urgent care. I
Mm-hmm.
don't trust these
Okay.
doctors down here. I went to a
Mm-hmm.
doctor who was recommended to me for as a GP, from a friend, a good friend who cares about me. And I wouldn't go back to him if my life depended upon it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, I'm a cancer survivor, and it had to do with my lymph nodes. I had lymphoma. He never listened to my chest, my back, didn't look down my nose, up my mouth, nothing like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then had the nerve to say to me, well, we can discuss that when you come back.
Well, wait on it, right?
You know,
Right.
and it dawned on me when I got in my car,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just there for an annual checkup. There was nothing wrong with me, but I hadn't had a checkup for almost a year because I couldn't get to Boston for my appointments.
Mhm.
And it dawned on me. That's what I used to worry. I used to say, why is my mother going to the doctor so much?
Mm-hmm.
So now I know they checked her right foot and told her she had to come back for her left foot.
Mm-hmm.
So um it's I just it's such a patients are not protected, and it's such a
Mhm.
system of capitalism.
Yeah.
Everybody's got these huge practices where they have their own testing labs and they have this and that and the other. Um, and um, it's like a mill. It's like a profit mill, and that comes from having gone to two doctors, three doctors who sent me for tests, and I haven't heard from her since. And it
Wow.
just so was that the diagnostic center sent me a copy of the report they sent her. I haven't heard from her since. I mean, it's just crazy, you know, everybody tells me, well, you've had the best care. You had the best of the doctors available in Boston. So you're measuring it. No, 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 no. I'm measuring it against my expectation that if a doctor says, well, I'm not familiar with that, but I think you need to see a specialist, or I think we need to do this, or I think I need to listen to your heart.
Yeah, just the basic
Yeah,
procedures when you
yeah,
come in
yeah,
any
yeah,
exam
yeah.
room, right? Yeah.
Um, I went to this eye doctor. I went to the ophthalmologist, and then I went to an optometrist. And I went to the ophthalmologist because at my age, cataracts, and I have vision and full vision in only one eye. And I'm always concerned about the organic stuff going on with my eyes. So then I went to the optometrist, and the optometrist spent more time with me than the ophthalmologist, who charged me like triple. and and the optometrist was asking me questions, and I couldn't answer them because the ophthalmologist hadn't given me the answers to them. So I'm going, okay, this is all too crazy.
There's a new phrase in the lingo called patient-directed care.
Oh yeah,
Have y'all heard of that?
when I had cancer, I was giving them the research. I was giving them the answers.
Right.
And I know how to do that. But my resistance right now is that when you have doctors who are so limited in their abilities beyond the same thing that they've done for the last 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, that you can't direct them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And the whole deal was, when I moved to Florida, that I would keep my doctors in Boston because I was going to be going there more often. So I missed 2 sets of appointments because of the pandemic. And but I've decided that I'm going to go to urgent care. If they tell me it's something serious that I should be concerned about, I'm going to Boston.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
Yeah. Here comes Kim. Hey, Kim.
There she is.
Happy New Year.
Everybody.
I thought of you. I was teaching my grandson on Mother's Day. Well, I wasn't teaching him. I was helping him write a poem for his mother. And he said, well, how did you know how to do that? I said, because I have a friend who's a poet.
So cool.
And he looked at me, he said, you do? I said, yeah. Her name is Kim.
Oh man. I'm gonna float on that for at least a month. I'm just gonna float on that.
And I did convince him he had to have more than one paragraph. He had to go some more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey Jill. Hey Michelle.
Hey.
Sorry I'm late.
That's
Okay.
We're just catching up. So
are we ready to start?
Yeah, why don't we go on and start?
Okay. Why don't we let Michelle take over?
Okay. So welcome everybody to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. We are in session 15, having discussions on our 15th book together, public discussions. You can learn more about the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle on Facebook, where we post events. And all of our video archives are on YouTube. What else can I tell you? Georgette, this is just a reminder that you're up next week, right?
I
With
see that.
Manhunters and Aftermath. We only have actually three more weeks. So, but tonight we are going to focus on 3 stories. And Janice Graham is going to be the discussion leader on Runway Blackout by Tara Betts, Kafka's Last Laugh by Vagabond, and 22X One Shot by Jelani Wilson. And I am Michelle Odom, located here on the land of the Lenape in Brooklyn, New York. Happy to be here. And Janice?
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Sisters in the literature universe. First, before we get into each of these essays, stories, I do want to say I really missed you and have been trying to catch up on YouTube on this particular book. I've had a lot of stuff going on. And Octavia Butler is a very sacred spirit in my life. I have read all of her works, and some of the people who came behind her. So I can understand people who would want to tell stories in her tradition. And one of the things that I think that she does so well inside the intrigue, inside the history, inside the journeys of her work, is she teaches leadership, introspection, and hope. I think she does that so well in her work. So I was both excited and a little bit reluctant about this book after I figured I had the wrong book because I was ready to get into some Octavia. And then I figured out I had the wrong book.
That's okay.
That's all right.
It's happened to all of us.
I did focus on these 3 stories. And let's start with Runway Blackout by Tara Betts.
Yeah, you know what, BJ, just let me interrupt for one moment. My fault. Let's do the finish the introductions with Gio and Kim.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Georgette Moses, and I'm joining you all from Columbia, South Carolina.
Hey.
And hi, everybody. I'm Kim Brandon, and here's my book. And I am in New York, home of the Lenape people, as Michelle said.
Yes.
Hey.
What does Michelle say? You're in where?
The home of the Lenape people. This was their land, their indigenous land.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I just said that because I recently watched Exterminate All the Brutes by Raoul Peck, which is an excellent documentary, like 600 years of human history. And, you know, he just reminds us that in this part of the world, we really should be centering the Native Americans.
You know, there's a wonderful book, and I can't think of the name of the author, and I can't think of the name of the book, that was written in the mid-60s. about the journey. It's the guy that I'll post it. It's a guy that writes on the basis of real history. He writes fiction on the basis of real history, and you learn so much. And in it is that area of how it began. And I can't think of the guy's name, but anyway, I am BJ Pete Graham, and here's my book. And I'm going to try to bring you through each one of the stories that we're focusing on tonight. And the first is Runway Blackout by Tara Bates. This is a story of therianthropes, which is actually a concept that was created by Octavia Voile. Shift changers. And no matter what you call them, they belong to her. And I read the story in that vein. And these shift changers, the story is about these shift changers, therianthropes, and their influence, affluence in the world of high fashion modeling and high fashion modeling agencies. And this particular species used the power of assimilating favorite or close racial, cultural, and physical appearance to become superbly suitable as power broking in that particular industry. You need someone with long eyelashes, blue eyes, and blonde hair. If I am a therianthrope in high fashion, I can make myself be that. I would no longer have white hair and lines going all through my face. So that is how they operated. And as a result, that is how they became the wealthiest generation of models in the history of high fashion modeling. Voile, who was named for her grandmother and her great grandmother, the crown and the veil. And it is a French word, voile. It's the same as we use French. It's not sci-fi French. It means the veil. Because her parents, unlike it seemed, but it didn't say in the story, you had to fill in so much stuff in these stories. It seemed that her parents honored and were familiar with shift changing, even though they were not shift changers. And it is said that it skipped a generation. So that is why in Voile's generation, it was the largest population of shift changers who would ultimately change the game of capitalist fashion, modeling, and business. Okay. Did everybody read this chapter, this story? Okay.
Okay.
So when I was reading this story, when Voile calls out for a boycott of shift changing, I was kind of like startled. Okay, where is this going? What is she doing? This is working for everybody. Even though I had questions and concerns about how they were using this gift or curse, however it might be considered. And it just seemed that people like me and people who were in the agencies and in the business of modeling felt that that was a fine thing to do because people could be very successful in what they do. So she calls for this boycott. There's controversy and resistance by some of the models, some of the shift changers, to accept the idea or the threat of maintaining a Black presence. Because in the tradition of Octavia, the base is always the descendants of Africa. So most of these models were Black. And they were able to get past the impediment in this industry of being Black by being shift changers. They were the exotics. They could make themselves exotic. They were not exotic in their Blackness. They could make themselves beautiful. And in the society, in this society, their Black beauty was not seen as beautiful. So that is what they did. Voile called for the protest. And it seemed to me that Fashion Week went really well. It was all the sensation. It was simply something like Beyonce showing up at Fashion Week with a dress that has little grills on it, and they're grilling lemons on the dress. That's how successful it seemed. But afterwards, and here is the thing, and you know the thing was that they all showed up in their Blackness.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them saw the threat of it, some of them didn't, but most of them went along to see if they could sell it that way. And it was successful until the next day. Because then the capitalists had figured out this is not going to work to our purpose, and had sent out the word through the media, you better cut the shit out, back up, whatever. And the models, who some of them who participated in the protest, decided, hey, I can't give up. I can't make this economic, financial sacrifice. Blackness is too threatening. No, Blackness is too threatening to my economic and financial well-being. So they all went back to shift changing, found themselves some whiteness, and then people who were not therianthropes started to manage their presence in the industry again.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered in reading it, well, if the Black people could go back to being the exotic, wouldn't that mean, and couldn't that be you go be exotic at work and then you go home and you be Black? I mean, how does change shifting work? So the considerations that I'm asking you to make about this story. Did everybody get this list of questions? Because I put all the questions out there. Is in our Black history, where do we find similarities to shift changing? And did the therianthropes find protection or simply riches in the ability to become non-Black? Let's deal with those. Well, let's deal with the third one with in those considerations. Why did the writer decide to use modeling as opposed to another career area? Anybody want to respond?
Well, that's such a blatant and historical industry where um, diversity is frowned upon, right?
Hmm.
It's seen as the other and undesirable.
I can hear you, Georgette. I just have to, for a second, grab something before it rains.
Okay, okay,
But
sure.
I can hear you. Go
Mhm.
ahead.
And when we do see singular models, whether male or female, of a different ethnicity, highlighted is one of, right? This is the only representation of, Asian beauty that we accept, but still it has to fit into that archaic mold of emaciation, right? And then, not normal bodies, not real people. And an industry that is so focused on externalisms, right? Contrived externalism that equate to beauty or excellence, or fashion. What do you think about when you think of, you know, Paris and New York Fashion Week? Oh, that's the best, no matter how weird it looks. Okay, or impractical. That's supposed to be, the example of the best that we can produce. And if you don't like it, well, you're just, crude and unwashed. And so we've heard so many stories about, the fashion models, um, men and women, about how abused they are mentally and physically, just to be in the industry. It's very hard. They take a lot of abuse and lose themselves trying to fit into an industry that doesn't care anything about them. They're a commodity. They're just there to be a walking clothes rack for whatever, the designer has created. Uh, just a total self-fulfilling psychological massive craziness. And so I think it was a perfect place to set the story because, like models trying to represent an impossible um, physical uh, example for beauty or, you know, desirability, people of color tend to fall into that same line, trying to meet the expectation of the greater, the dominant society, people of, the dominant group. What do they define beauty, intelligence, efficiency as? So, and yet you have no control over what the parameters are. You either conform or you're relegated to the outskirts of the business, the industry, and you don't make any money. So if you want to make money, if you want to, successfully operate in the society, you conform. So yeah, I think it was perfect industry to choose to set this story in.
Mhm. You made an excellent point, one that I didn't highlight, and that is about the designers of the clothing that these models uh, retailed to the public. Um, and that is that um, the designers were part of the force of capitalism in forcing shift changers to be what they wanted to be rather than and being concerned that their designs were going to be associated with being black and brown.
Mhm. Yeah, I on question one, where do we find similarities to these shift shapers? changers. I was thinking about, you know, at the end, she gives her assistant Du Bois's book, The Souls of Black Folk, where, of course, he is describing this experience of a double consciousness. And so to me, this was kind of taking the sort of mental shape shifting that he was describing and applying it in a physical realm.
Yeah. I wondered, was this a universe where, why would Voile have access to W.E.B. Du Bois, it seems, solely? And it may be that her parents passed it on to her. So I'm not sure how that came up.
Yeah, I think it was like a family treasure,
Yeah.
passed down from grandparents or something.
Yeah.
And there's another part where she says none of the people in her circle know this book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I wondered how that was.
Right.
Well, I guess a couple of things. I like that it was anchored in fashion. Um, just looking at what fashion dictates as the thing. And I just remember, you know, maybe in the 90s, I think it was, where there was this movie with Bo Derek, and she comes out of the water with these braids, this cultural appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
And if Black women had worn their hair to work like that with those braids, they needed to shift shape back into a perm. You know, it was really good to kind of see that culturally we have to shift shape in order to stay employed sometimes. So I could definitely relate that story. And even the way we speak and code switching, where, you know, you talk one way around your friends and your family and another way at work because you, God forbid, you misrepresent the race, you know? So I really like the code shifting, because it's grounded in being a Black woman, you don't know what that is because you're shifting so much. You know, you don't get the opportunity to be your authentic self because you have to kind of align to what the culture wants you to be like at any given moment. And so that's why I love this idea of you could turn into a bird, you could turn into this, you could turn into that, because it just feels so incredibly familiar. And I remember when I was working at a Fortune 100 company, it was a bank, and they had this thing where they got all of this art from the Rockefeller Foundation. And so once you got to a vice president level, you could do anything you wanted to your office. So you could go down to this resource and look at artwork. And they had this African artwork at the bank. And so I just said, "Oh, this is going in my office." You know how many people didn't like that? It was just like shift shaping. I was just like, you forgot to shift shape at work. How you think you're gonna come up here and act like you Black at work when everybody knows you Black, but you're not supposed to act Black. You're supposed to shift into, you know, the straight silver hair thing. And so this chapter works so much for me. And at the same time, when we're with each other, how much shift shaping do we demand of each other? And I just think that that if you, so when someone said, "What's wrong with wanting to be white?" It's just like, well, be who you want to be, you know? Be who you want to be. If you want purple hair, have your purple hair. Be who you want to be. So I think that resonated with me, even though I was so proud of the main character.
But even he had some biases about that. When I was a senior level executive and had sessions with other Black women who were um, seeking out my counsel, I was one of the people who said, "Look, this was before nails had acrylic. You had to um, glue them things on." And I remember saying very clearly to one young woman who was well dressed. I mean, I loved how she dressed. I just didn't have the time to remember to put on 15 different little necklaces, and I had a watch. Leather watch. I had expensive suits, and I wore nice practical shoes. That's just me. And she was a bit flamboyant, and I had to tell her, I'm reading it from a white man's point of view. That's that's my talent. And I'm seeing these nails and all these rings and all these bracelets and all these necklaces. And by the way, I love the suit. The suit is so great. But they are thinking you're not serious, that your brain is in a whole nother sphere. And I guess that's a matter of telling somebody to shift change, you know. So I could understand how a shift changer might be also a protection.
Yeah.
And that was one of the questions in a world where if Black in your natural form, did being a therianthrope serve as a weapon or protector in any way? And what I mean by that question is a weapon as in defending yourself from not being able to participate as a successful member of in a career in an industry, and a weapon to make sure that your participation was at the highest level.
I think it's any place that you have to be in camouflage to be in that space is not safe for you. I just feel like, you know, usually you want to be in camouflage until the danger goes by. And then you could turn back into the lizard or whatever it is that you are. But for you to have to camouflage to be in that space, it means that you're not safe in the space as you are. And you may live another day, but it sounds like it might be better to go drive a bus.
Unless you think you can change the space. I'm thinking about, I think I told you all about this before. I was listening to a podcast recently by a man named Javon McCormick. His daddy was a Black drug dealing pimp. His mama was some Irish or something, grew up in an orphanage. His daddy had 23 children. So you can imagine his life. And yet he has become this highly successful CEO of major corporations. And he's telling his life stories, very entertaining. And he talked about how in the beginning, instead of calling himself Javon, he called himself Jay McCormick, because he realized, or he learned from somebody, that Javon just sounded too ethnic. And it brought up all of these questions of how do you get a Javon with a McCormick? So he put himself out there as Jay. And he got in a lot of doors and built his way up and became very, very successful. So that's why I'm saying, if you can conceive of it as a protection or as a weapon to get you to a certain place where you can then, so now he's Javon McCormick. He's the head of, Scribe, that helps people publish books, and he's done all kinds of wonderful things. Mm-hmm. That's one way of I guess dealing with this continuing issue.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I had for years people, I would go out like in the field and meet employees, and people would say to me, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were a woman." All the time.
Yeah, that's
so
you went by BJ.
What? Yeah, because
you went by BJ. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here is, this was quite an interesting, there were follicles all over the place that came out of the storyline here. But it really comes to something that this group talks about all the time, and that is that your silence will not protect you. And at the end of the protest, it was Voile who was the big earner, the big kahuna in this industry, who had appeared in every major fashion show, fashion magazine, who, after she convinced the Black therianthropes to shift change during this fashion week into Naomi Campbell and some other people. I don't know.
Stay Black. Mm-hmm.
The only one I know is Beverly Johnson, because she and I went to school together. So Beverly Johnson and Naomi Campbell and the other people that we know about. Mm-hmm. And they were doing this on the runway as part of the protest. And I'm wondering if the message was so offended to the people who were so accustomed to being accommodated about what you must look like, the photographers, the designers, the makeup people, that they were so accustomed to the accommodation that then they appended arrogance and threat to their thought universe about the Blackness of these therianthropes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought the after effects were a little overboard. a little shocking. Because they knew that I thought that all of those designers and hairdressers and agents, they knew they were therianthropes. So I didn't understand why they would have such a extreme reaction to them coming out as their natural selves.
And that's what I'm suggesting in the question. Was it the rebellion?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It just reminds you of Black Wall Street, where we're you having more than us, you being a part of your own agency is just not allowed, and we'll come for you. As long as we can use your talent and use your gifts, we're okay. But don't you use them in the way that you want to use them. How are you going to just decide what beauty looks like when we told you
Don't you be
what you're
black.
supposed to look like?
Don't you try to be black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the part where I said, aha, this is white supremacy in a very raw form.
Mm-hmm.
I own you. I own what you have.
Yeah.
Are there any other offerings that you have about this story?
Well, she does mention, well, it's mentioned as soon as, they've made their protest, that the reviewers started mumbling about reverse racism. Now, where have we heard that before? But am I wrong? I thought that in the description of the setting, they said that there are more people of color, more Black people anyway in this society than people than white people. So,
Wait a minute, let me check that on Georgette.
because if that's the truth, everything, the severe snapback, right, backlash to this mere, we are people too, we are Black people here, like you said, Michelle, is pretty overboard, and just underscores the insanity of the whole situation, right? We know we're doing wrong. You know we're doing wrong, but don't you try to tell us we're doing wrong. Kind of situation.
And there was also the aspect that they started to have trouble switching back, going back and forth, as the years were going on, which made me think at some point you're going to get stuck.
Yeah, that's important.
In one of these places. Is it going to be, your natural self, or stuck, as a bird or something? I don't know. But
maybe that's what happened to Clarence Thomas.
I think Clarence Thomas was an abortion gone wrong.
Oh.
But, one of the things that Betts does say, and I can't find the reference to the demographic population numbers, but one of the things that she does say is that shift changers, when they had other kinds of skills, capabilities, capacity, like eavesdropping and other kinds of skills, that they were taken away to laboratories to be studied. So it was a society where shift changers were defined as to their utility.
Yeah.
you know. And today it was really interesting. After much, today I saw a video of members of the Congressional Black Caucus um, doing a line dance in Tulsa yesterday.
Huh?
And I had a little acid reflux. I will post it. I was disgusted, and I had just had an argument with one of our brothers about his insistence, an insistent over criticism and name calling of members of Black elected officials. You know, I even started hollering at him. That's because you grew up in Haiti and you don't understand. You don't understand. We have rules here. Black people have rules. You didn't grow up here understanding that no matter what, you kept certain shit in house. Yeah, and you know, y'all know what I'm talking about. So, and so anyway,
and then you saw the line dance.
And then I saw the line dance. And I didn't apologize to him. I just posted it on his Facebook. Too small-minded to apologize to that crazy man. But
yeah,
you know, I vacillate. This is part of. I don't want to be one of these shift changers, but I do vacillate from being hard-nosed to trying to be kind, and it has its toll.
Yeah,
it has its toll. And then I get it. And the bottom line in this story is that Blacks have to retreat in order to protect themselves, because the writer does not talk about, had they persisted to try to be the stars in the industry, but maintain the principles of the protest, what would have happened? Because, you know, every book I read, I'm writing the rest of it.
That's interesting. Probably violence.
We know that Octavia would have put that into context, even if she had one more paragraph and said that they found them all dead in an alley on Hudson Street.
Yeah.
These writers are not Octavia.
They're still growing. They're still growing.
I think I'm sorry, my phone rang, but I think the problem I have with this story is agency. Like, I just kept saying to myself, wait a goddamn minute. Oh, I'm sorry. You mean to tell me you could shift into anything and you don't think that's a superpower? Why are you acting like shift changing is a gift that you're going to give to somebody else as opposed to using it for your own agency? So when she says, oh, I can shift into another little kid, you know, you could have shifted into Abraham Lincoln. You know, you could have done some stuff. You could have told the one army to go the other way. You could have, you know, pretend to say, okay, retreat, go. I would have been causing some ruckus. I would have been causing some
ruckus
in
the Civil War.
Yeah.
You know, if you get one every generation, and now you have so many that they could take over Fashion Week. Your vision is so small that the only thing you could do is want equity in fashion when you could set the world on fire. You could just you could be a bird that's sitting on the window while Moscow is making their plans. You could just, oh my God, it was just like my head was going, what else they could do? And what else they could do? And what else they could do?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the story. That's the story.
You're so right. Okay,
Kim,
Kim, now you have to write it because how they shift change and they began to infiltrate positions of power in the military.
and Kim, I added the pictures of all of the authors and the young woman Tara Betts that wrote this. Just the energy that I get off of her picture. That's not where she is. And I mean, one thing, that it did, I think, do for me is it made me think about the challenges that supermodels have with all of the problems that I see in the Black community. Never have I had a moment of concern about the troubling life of supermodels. But she made me think about it, and I can see how those kinds of things would be problematic.
I just saw Tara Betts' picture.
Wait. Let me see this girl.
What you gonna say about it, BJ?
Okay, now I understand everything.
Right. She's not
young. She's young.
butler.
She's free-spirited.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else want to offer? Thank you, Kim. That's a very interesting.
I was reading and I was saying, wait a minute. Your mama is enslaved. And you could shape-shift into anything you want. Is she there picking cotton or tobacco or sugar? And you sitting there like, what I want to be today? What I want to be today? Man, you better turn yourself into a white man with some freedom papers. You better do something now.
That's right. That's right.
Free everybody. Go from town to town, freeing everybody, causing mischief.
I know. I'd have been killing off people, assassinating people, and taking on their forms.
That's a different anthology series, right there. That's not this one.
Joe Biden would be dead. Dead.
Oh my goodness.
And I would be patting on Major or whatever the dog name. Passing every executive order and firing people and having them assassinated and all kinds of stuff. But there you go. But I looked at Tara Betts' picture, and I am struck. And y'all prejudice me. Y'all really don't prejudice me now at this point.
What did they do?
Because I'm prejudiced at this point. Oh God.
No, but I would say looking at her picture, she's probably an especially sensitive young woman to even have this as a concern, because it doesn't look like it's a personal problem for her.
Okay, but she doesn't reach deep enough into Octavia Butler. She is not a student of Octavia Butler's narrative.
Her narrative is happy slaves. Happy slaves.
Happy everything. Power to her, power is making money.
And then you're gonna throw Du Bois up at the end of that, because I was just saying to myself,
I was confused by the Du
story
Bois.
ended. Wait a minute, that's the end of the story. We're the end of the story. You're going to get me to read something that's the end of the story. I don't want to read.
Yeah.
I was confused by that particular quote.
Mm-hmm.
All of everything that she could have quoted out of Souls. Why that quote? And
Mm-hmm.
why W.E.B. Du Bois as opposed to Ida B. Wells or somebody else?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know she had to set it that her parents would be, that the parents would be exposed. But even George Washington Carver, um, even what's the guy's name? Prince, not Prince, Prince Hall. Um, might have been, but that particular quote was like, it was like, see, now I didn't say this then when I read it, but now I would say, girl, please.
And then you got to look at who edited this book and say, you know, you could have given Sister Girl a little feedback. You could have given her a little feedback.
Yeah.
Because she was probably new to this genre and maybe just needed a little feedback to say, take off the white gloves. Take off the white gloves. People can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they're all pretty young. The editors and the writers.
Yeah.
And some of them had never written any kind of fiction before, So
how did they get
it? Yeah, so I take it back then. My
question is, how did they get in the book? But anyway. But anyway. Does anybody have anything else to offer on this particular?
You need to stop asking that question.
Yeah,
you need to stop asking that question, and let's just move along. Let's move along.
I don't want
y'all talk about me.
Because you said you would kill people. You had the shape shifting.
I mean, I was kilting people, taking on their forms. And
kill 10 people.
Kilting people. If I had a superpower, something came up. Oh, the other day, something happened and I had to call a friend and I said, wow, what's your superpower today? She was going, girl, if you don't leave me alone. Okay.
So just imagine George Floyd has just been murdered and I get the opportunity to shift shape, and I'm going to shift shape into some fashion boots.
Kim, you gotta let it go.
I want a new story.
Wait.
Okay. Michelle, cut this part. Michelle, cut this part.
As the discussion group leader, I wouldn't let you clown like this unless I had seen that lady's face.
That's why I gotta look at the picture when I start. I'm like, all right, let me see what I'm getting into here.
That's the way to go.
I had met Octavia Butler. I met her twice, but I heard her lecture 3 times.
Wow.
And she's seemed to me to be a very soft soul. She is not one for joyful laughter. I believe that women who garden are searching for some place to take their confusion and anger. That's why I'm a gardener. And have a space that makes sense other than just what people call peace and quiet. And I just think that Octavia Butler's essence was so different. And Kim hit it right on the head. She really did. Because I was thinking when I was reading, this is madness. I've been stole the shift changed in the money and been in the bank and in the I mean, I would have been doing a whole bunch of things other than being on the runway. And if I had to be on the runway, I'd be on the runway, but the runway wouldn't be the vehicle.
Two last things.
Yeah.
If I could shift chains and you touched my booty or you said something about let me get into your skin, I would be in your house at night. I would come to your house. I would be a cat, a dog, or something, and I would meet you in your house, and I would just kind of make you understand. I'm a shift shaper. Damn it. I'm a shift shaper. And then the other thing that if we're going back, 300-400 years, I would be like Oprah. I would put on my white man look, and I would say, who wants to ship back to Africa? You gonna ship back to Africa? You gonna ship back to Africa? Who wants to ship back to Africa? I was ship shape, all right? You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play that on my radio show. You are too much. Oh Lord, have mercy. You're right. And we should write to Tara. We should cut out this part of the audio and send it to her and say, "Baby, you got to do better. Please do better in the spirit of
Just grow in your craft. Growing your craft.
Oh my Lord. Yeah. Okay, how much time do we have? Because I'm gonna have to put Kim in check because people have us in midnight. And then you know how Kim does. Kim will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, ladies, but I mean, I know you." Yeah. How much time do we have?
Well, till 7:30 or a little longer. We can stay as long as we want.
It's 7:30 now. We still got two things.
I know. Well, let's talk about Kafka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kafka's Last Laugh by Vagabond. The story is the story of Resistor Fernandez, a Puerto Rican protester resistor. She participates in an anti-capitalism protest in New York City, gets into a brawl with the cops, and is sentenced to 3 years in prison. The sentence is reduced from 680 counts to just 1, enough to employ the sentence she received. She was brutally beaten, waterboarded, and tortured during her detainment. Excuse me. Once in prison, she had been subjected to the spray of a nano drug to ensure compliance to her assigned job in prison, which was the CROC, Corrective Retail Operation Confinement. The drug monitors and transmit information about physical responses to information and uses transmission of electroshock to provide corrective behavior. The first question I think that we have to address is how do you respond? The consideration for you is, how do you respond to the laws that are cited as part of her violations and their similarity to some of the laws that we see being enacted in states across this country?
Very close to home, right?
Yeah.
Kim, thank you. And okay, we know you're there. But girl, I miss you already.
Yeah, the Patriot Act for, I mean, it just really made me think about how laws can be made to say whatever lawmakers want them to say. And sometimes very quickly. I was listening to a podcast today talking about the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre. And they were talking about how the white people who, of course, did all the destruction were deputized, on the spot. Deputized to go kill some niggers. That was the directive. Go kill some niggers. So even whatever you think the law is today doesn't say nothing about what it's going to be at 9 p.m. tonight.
Emergency law, which is one of the problems with executive orders and military and law enforcement emergency orders. And we don't think about that very much. But these laws are so in line and let me say it backwards. So not in line with what we are seeing as legislative efforts around this country. And you're right, Michelle. In the South, one of the reasons that the Klan allowed the local sheriffs and the local police chiefs to be the wizards is because they could deputize people on the spot. But as the laws were cited in this story, it was alarming to me because that wasn't really that far off for it to be called science fiction.
Right. Well, yeah, there was
fiction.
Right. And if you look at the picture of the man that wrote this story, he's a real community organizer and filmmaker is his background. So he really was drawing on, real experience with Black Wall Street situation.
How do the chains of capitalism victimize or manifest in our lives in the same way that they manifest in this story? Kim, Georgette?
Ask that again.
How do the chains of capitalism victimize or manifest in our lives in the same way that it seemed to manifest in the story? For instance, you got Galleria Mall, and the corporations have really taken over the penal system and corrections and used it to their capitalist benefit. You have laws which, I mean, one of the laws that of the 680 counts, as the lawyer described it to Resistor, is that it was targeted toward the protection of retail or the retail industry.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what comes to mind for me is there's the prison complex here, Rikers Island,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe 3 years ago we were trying to close Rikers,
Mm-hmm.
and Bill Moyers put out a film on Rikers, and it just talked about how it costs $240,000 a year to house one prisoner for 1 year. And much of that money goes to capitalism, so that if you need boots or a pencil or anything in prison, it could just cost so much more. And then you have all of this opportunity to bring drugs into the prison to test on inmates. You know, it just reminded me of when you saw the documentary on Rikers, and you could just see how this story was just like almost as if it was written for
Mm-hmm.
those prisoners. And I remember my family was incarcerated, and he was talking about how he made, I forgot the numbers, but it was so low. I think $3 a day or something, and he worked all day making glasses,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so that somebody could sell these glasses for $100 a pair. So I don't know, it just rings so close to the truth that I like hearing stories about prison and incarceration, because I think that has so much to do with police brutality. It feels like it's this whole big domino. You just don't know where the beginning is. Well,
Mm-hmm.
some people know. I don't know where the beginning is.
Well, yeah, even in Florida, Stan, um, marketing companies have huge operations inside the state prisons where
Mm-hmm.
all your robocalls coming on your cell phones and your home phones coming from the prison,
Wow.
selling stuff for people.
Yeah, that gallery, um, it just struck me as the logical extension of the prison industrial complex that we've been using prisoners as laborers for so long
Mm-hmm.
that the it just seems like a retail outlet on the prison. And I could like see myself. I was remembering when my son took me to Georgette, what's the name of the shopping centers they have on the military bases?
Oh, the commissaries and
The
the PX, the
commissary,
BX. Mm-hmm.
PX. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can see that on the grounds of a prison. you know,
But
uh,
and it's really interesting, and one of the things we have to contemplate, and this is aside from the story, and as a leader, I know I'm letting y'all be all over the place, but anyway, um, I live in um, an affluent development, and down the street from us, like maybe 3 blocks, even though it's 1 block, it would be 3 city blocks. They wanted to put in an Amazon warehouse. If it had been in another community, they would have put that warehouse in here because Amazon was spending an awful lot of money trying to do it. But in this community, people were saying it's never going to happen. It would make too much traffic. I mean, these old ladies have been killing me with that. Oh no, because our dogs have to be protected from all those trucks. And I'm going, where they
God.
and so and then Amazon doesn't want to put it in the poor communities because they're afraid of the stereotypes that they hold, that there will be thefts, carjackings, truck jackings, or whatever. Instead of thinking about, we can take these jobs to people who have no means of transportation to come over there where the other people live and have a steady flow of an employment market. And it's just a warehouse, it's whatever they call their warehouse, a supply house or whatever. Kim, you have a comment on this particular point?
I'm just thinking about Amazon. I think they got it backwards. One, most poor neighborhoods have been gentrified, so I don't know what they're talking about.
Not in
and two, they once they drive that truck into that warehouse, they are just as safe as they could possibly be.
Absolutely.
I think that it's get out of here,
Yeah, absolutely. But this prison, they're selling shoes, they're selling perfume, and getting feedback. They don't have, this is all marketing information that Resistor Fernandez is providing through the through the, what do you call it stuff? Contentina. Her body has been prepared to provide information, physical responses to stimuli, and can be punished for negative thoughts about the product.
Wow.
That's unbelievable to me. And
yeah, but not so far from what technology is able to do today.
Yeah, you're right. Because I think in this country there's medical electronic implantation that a lot of it that we don't know about, that we wouldn't even imagine, but they can tell you whether your heart valve is getting too narrow with something in your heart valve, so we're not far from that. We're really not. And one of the reasons that you'll never see an uprising like Attica ever again is because they're using drugs to create compliant prisoners. Yeah, so
another similarity.
And I bet you those drugs are like $100 a pill. So it's like profit on every way that we oppress you, we're gonna make money off it.
Even like telephone services, and they have the audacity to want to have conversation and debate about it. That a telephone, but that's how you don't get to be rich without the government. I found out the hard way about that. I had a personal cell phone and I had a government cell phone. Sometimes I would make the mistake of calling someone on the
personal
government because I was going to be in a building where I wasn't going to take my personal, So people would call me and I wasn't available and they'd call back. And so my cell phone bill was like $1,400. And I'm saying, wait, you're saying that I had 32 calls and it cost the government $1,400? What the hell? And it was because they allowed AT&T to charge them whatever AT&T would charge them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had to fight that. I fought that all the way to Washington. I wasn't paying them $1,400. But when they were calling me on my personal cell phone, they weren't charging $19 a call or something stupid like that.
But that's just how they do everything. That's like the scam with the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical companies can charge the U.S. government, way more than they charge in other countries that have single payer systems that negotiate a reasonable rate, because that's the scam,
Mm-hmm.
But I did really enjoy this story.
Did you?
And I did, and I wanted to point out also the participation of the scientific community. And so that part where he talks about the psychologists, the researchers have found that resistance to capitalism is a source of criminality. It reminded me, Georgette, I remember medical apartheid, they're talking about drapetomania. If you escape from slavery.
It's an illness. Yeah, we need to fix that.
They even imply that in this story.
Yeah.
But that's what they're doing. They're fixing her.
Yeah.
The contentina is designed to fix her.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that, so she's a resistor and they need to rehabilitate her. And the goal is to, make her channel all her desires and energies through capitalism. And you're looking at, well, what are they making us do now? We're not even at that point of by force, right? or coercion or drugging pharmaceutically. We're willingly, channeling all of our desires and energies through capitalism, because we need to conform or survive. And when you don't, you're attacked, on so many different levels.
Kim?
Yes.
You want to jump in here?
I'm I'm going to go back to Tulsa one last time. And when they were talking about how many times,
You mean the Tulsa line?
No. I pray never to see that. I don't think I want that imprinted on my brain. But I think this business of having our own, as Michelle always says, what's our 500-year plan? I think that would get you in trouble too if you're saying, not only do I believe in some capitalism, but I want capitalism for the people, for the community. And so I think they would shoot you up with dope too if you start talking about, I'm not going to buy this brand of sneakers, or I'm not going to buy this brand of car. I'm going to get a car that lasts 15 years and build my community. I think they would shoot you up with some heavy drugs. Like, wait a minute, we didn't say anything about capitalism for people of color.
It would be worse than that, Kim. BJ and I both know that if this place turns into Gilead, They're gonna have us pinned up on the wall so quick.
I'm gonna keep smoking my cigarettes because I prefer that to the wall.
Don't have to worry. We're gonna be done quick. Yeah,
if we could be shift changers, we could turn into Aunt Lydia and build the army.
Okay.
Right, Kim?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna have me thinking about that shift changing all night.
The possibilities are endless, though, right?
I want a shift change.
The possibilities are endless. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but I have to go back to the beginning of the story and ask this question. What was she thinking?
True.
Okay. I just wanted to ask a question.
Well, it would have been a short story if she had, you know, had some forethought. Well, if I knock over this police officer, I'm not fast enough to get away.
Well, when
I'm going to get waterboarded.
When I first started reading, I was hoping she was a shift changer and was going to turn into the lady with the warriors from the Black Panther or something.
Right. Oh my goodness. Or maybe that black angel from the previous story would, you know, she'd come and, you know, save her or something.
Yeah.
But that's
yeah.
I loved her.
Okay, so we need to move on into a part that I thought was pretty important from this writer. And that is laughter that induces joy that solves all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, Junior, where did you grow up? Fun. Okay.
Well, I thought the point he was making was that it would be a key to revolution because it would help the people who have these implants, help them evade detection, you know, by the masses. But beyond that, I appreciated that message in the sense that I do think that we have to find ways to have joy in the here and now. That, you know, while we are remembering where we come from and trying to figure out how to get where we're going, you know, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of heaviness to carrying our kind of history in our bones.
Well, I think he's actually writing from science, not science fiction, but from science about how endorphins are able, what they do to your physical brain, your brain, which allows your brain to be more efficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the questions that I have for you, ladies, was, to what extent does it reflect as to laughter to offset tragedy and trauma? And are we repelling ourselves against joyfulness? And primarily, I ask that question because we are so fused into dealing with our horrors as a real thing. And the other is, does it help destructive oppression? Does it help in eliminating destructive oppression? And let me ask the last reflection that I had for you to comment. Does it reflect in the tales that we hear about slave festivals and picnics and whatever other kinds of stories that we have heard in the slave narratives about slave socialization in the Jim Crow clubs? Because right after during Jim Crow, that is when many Black nightclubs, etc., ballrooms rose up, and contemporary dance and socialization in Black and brown communities, where it just seems like everybody's partying. I mean, partying is the point, or whatever. I mean, um, that's my own stereotype, because it seems as though we have generations of children. I mean, don't get me wrong. I went to the Sky Cap Club every Wednesday night, and I'd leave till the joint closed. Uh, and went home, took a shower.
Where was the Sky Cap Club?
In Boston. It was owned by all the Black Sky Caps, and they had, you know, it was a bar and dance room, dance hall, whatever, blah 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 blah. And on Wednesday night, that's when everybody went to the Sky Cap Club to dance. So I'm, you know,
what city was that?
Boston. It's still there.
Oh, thank you.
So whether it was a relief valve, because people in those eras found that even where they found happiness, they felt a greater sense of freedom. Am I making myself clear?
Yeah, I think you just answered the question.
And so what I'm asking in the same way that Resistor asked, is it dangerous to laugh at the madness? You know, it was the same thing when I was talking about, what's that guy's name? I didn't find him funny. I'm honoring the comedian on my show, and then I turn around and say, well, I didn't find him funny. Okay. You didn't find the comedian funny. That's what Stephen said to me after the show. She said, did you say Paul Mooney wasn't funny?
Paul Mooney.
I said, yeah. I didn't find him funny. I found him dead serious. And he couldn't make me laugh because I couldn't laugh about what he was talking about. And Eddie Murphy too, and all the others. David Chappelle. So anyway, so the question is it dangerous to laugh at the madness? And that makes endorphins, friends, somewhat temporary.
Yeah. My answer is we need balance. You know, we need some laughter. But anything can be done to excess. And I do think that we tend to err on the side of escapism. But but we're only human. And so we need some forms of escape, some forms of joy, you know, but I think we have to also ask ourselves, and when do we do the work?
I think sometimes laughter can be like a tonic. So I agree 100%, Michelle, that it's something that has to be balanced. But I think sometimes you could just take yourself out of the immediacy of the trauma through laughter, and build yourself some resistance and some resilience to start doing some planning, or what your next step is. And it also brings forth like this community, because I know that we have some family stories, especially during some hard times, and some people's transitions, where those are our favorite stories, when we're laughing around um, at those times of great loss, where you'll find one thing that person said or did, and it just brings us to a point where the laughter just kind of lifts you up, you know.
But
And I love that
it's the
part.
science of laughter.
Yes,
It's the
and I
science
love
of
that
laughter.
there's a part in huh.
It's the
I'm sorry. I'll just say one
science
last
of
thing.
laughter. Go ahead, Kim.
Um, in Beloved, there's this one part where Baby Suggs, she has like
Yeah, in the
a
gathering.
church for the enslaved,
Yeah,
the gathering.
yeah.
She's just saying, let your children see you laugh. You know how important it is for us to see each other experiencing some level of joy.
Hmm.
And then you go back in and you fight the next day, or you go back into the smallness of that world. But that laughter was so important,
Hmm.
just like dance and just like music. So I could see those clubs popping up, because there's just a point where you just need that, the blues or jazz, to carry you from one week to the other. And so anything that we do to keep our souls intact, I'm all for it. So I don't think it's dangerous. I think it's necessary.
Hmm. Georgette, you want to?
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. I agree with what you all have shared. I mean, when you're, and I'm just thinking about the circumstances of history, and how when we look at it from a distance, it seems like such a huge and painful and destructive stream of activity. You wonder, well, how in the world did these people survive it? And then you related an instance, well, they went to these clubs and they had a good time. And that is the balance of, you know, recharging in an environment you create for yourself,
Hmm.
with all that positive energy of music and laughter, dancing or whatever it may be, to come back, to then be recharged again and come back and face, this sort of bizarro world that, for you would think sane human beings, you know, that's you would see that this is, this can't be a positive reality, because it can't sustain itself. At some point, somebody's going to break, and there'll be entire total destruction here, for these two parties, or whoever, the opposing groups are. And so, um, hmm, in then related to the story, the we think of laughter as a response to something, but not as a weapon, not as a defense
Yeah,
mechanism, right? And so, And laughter is contagious, just like yawning. So, I mean, what's the science behind that? Something natural, that even without knowing the other person, when they start laughing, you start too. There's something else going on with that energy, our auditory and emotional response to each other, and how that lifts us up, the way Kim was talking about. And not just being an equal and opposite force, right, to all that negative dark energy, but maybe more than, if it could spread, right, as described in the story.
I was wondering if the writer, had he been older, would have used wailing as opposed to laughter.
Mm.
In the
Mhm.
tradition of wailing and more moaning in the Black church, I think Octavia Butler would have used moaning.
Mhm. Mhm.
I like the laughter, only I just think that there's something so powerful of getting your butt kicked all week long, and then you have this moment where you're with people who look like you, Black and brown people, and you're laughing, and you just feel like you're at home in each other's faces, in each other's voices. I think there's just something so beautiful about, like, even the four of us together laughing at shift shifting. It's just something about the community and just taking a minute out to laugh, and just pausing the pain for so that you can just be in the present moment with people who are struggling through what you're struggling through too.
Mhm, mhm.
I just think that is just so incredibly powerful. But ladies, it's almost 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna have to go to my next Zoom thing.
Okay,
So
because
I enjoyed
we,
this.
we will miss you, and there are no shift changes in the next story. But I'm glad you said that, Kim, and thank you so much for your contributions tonight. They were so
Oh, you're
helpful,
more than welcome.
so worthy of our response, and you had us laughing. You made us think.
BJ, you did an excellent job. You did an excellent job with your questions. I can't wait for you to host again.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, Gio. Bye,
Bye,
Michelle.
Kim.
Thank
Good
you,
night. Have
Michelle.
a good week.
Good night.
Yeah.
Here's my response to Kim. And everything with me is personal. I I, I was always an organizational leader where you could hear laughter coming out of my office all the time. I'm talking about real loud, crazy laughter. Um, and it and I realized in one of the companies, this is where you could smoke in your office in a building a long time ago. Y'all,
Oh, the
y'all
good
young
old
people might not
days.
not might,
Yeah.
might remember that. And on Friday nights, and part of it was I was the senior executive Black in the whole company. So people, they knew I was friendly, and I would make sure that I met every Black person and welcomed them to the company as they came in, blah, 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 blah. And so everybody came down to my office on Friday night. My office looked like anybody's mafia poker game.
Okay.
And they would be bringing chairs from other offices and out in the outer offices to sit every Friday night. And all we were doing is bullshitting. I wasn't counseling nobody, nothing. Um, and every now and then I would, if it was a smaller crowd, I would pull out my bottle of scotch, um, and pass out a few drinks. But and it was the laughter.
Mhm.
It really was the laughter. And people don't gravitate to people who get happy and shout and moan and cry out in church. Have you ever noticed that?
Yep.
I mean, I would be sitting there saying, well, this is more than the Holy Ghost. Something is going on with this person.
PJ, you bad.
I mean, you know. So, but I think laughter probably has more power. And Kim is absolutely right. It has more power. I have felt less powerful in the period that in the last 5 years, because I have been less of a laughter person. I was talking about that with my grandchildren. How we used to have so much fun and we would be laughing and blah, blah, blah when they were little. And poor Mason had to grow up in the Trump era, in the Obama era. And there hasn't been a lot, there really hasn't been a lot. So I think we can conclude and thank Vagabond for reminding us how powerful laughter can be. I think the story was very vacuous, but what the hell, who am I? I ain't no writer.
You didn't like this? I enjoyed this. I really did enjoy this.
I know I was looking for something else, and you wrote me and told me you're gonna love this.
Yeah,
I know, and I went.
I think there's a lot.
She just got lost. It seemed to me that she got lost. Who she was got lost in the story. She could have been anybody that went to prison. She didn't have to be a resistor or nothing, because she got lost. And the thing, and you don't find out until the last paragraph when the writer talks about how the conquest through laughter reminded her of who she was. But I really didn't know who she was, because you had all the other stuff.
I also want to say about the laughter that to me it's also connected to the absurdity of the laws, the absurdity of the trial, the absurdity of the whole thing, the medical process. And it reminded me, BJ, recently I was watching Aaron Sorkin's trial of the Chicago 7. And there's a part in there where the defendants all come out and they're like dressed up like security guards, and and they're like making fun of and laughing at the absurdity of the entire process. So that
I don't know. I just there are many books where I'm telling the writer, take it here, take it there, take it the other way, and they're not paying attention to me. But I hear what you're saying. Okay, so let's spend some time with 22XX, One Shot by Jelani Wilson. I was very hopeful when I saw all of that, the One Shot and the 22X's, and I said, oh, this is going to be Afrocentric sci-fi for real. And this is what I said about it, and then I would like to ask you how you felt about it, what your response was. The story is filled with new and interesting language, fantasy systems of monitoring and such. The main character, an apparent genius, is found at a mandatory school for such highly intellectual young humans, filled with nano machines to control their inquisition of their moon environment. It is a study of capture, imprisonment of intellect, greed, and rebellion. The fantasies of these of this story are hard to capture because the foundation of context and direction is not set. They lost me. They went in the bushes and just lost me.
Yeah,
Uh,
this one felt a little juvenile to me.
yeah.
But I do think that there's
There's a story
theme.
there.
There's a theme
The
there
story
around
is the professional.
authoritarianism.
The story is the professor, I thought.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
the story is in his rebellion and how he recruited and enticed the students.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the technocracy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the genius of one particular student. I mean, they even talk about somebody that never showed up, the girlfriend. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what the hell happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
But there was so much potential going on in that story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even if they told it from the professor's point of view rather than the student's point of view, while the students were trying to find him if he was that
Right.
wanted, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I had
Right.
a really hard time, and I thought that it was sophomoric.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
It was.
you're not, you're not wrong. I don't know what Jelani Wilson's background is, but this seems, it read more like the script for the first episode of a sci-fi series on Netflix or
Mm-hmm.
one of those other platforms, because as you say, the interesting, portion would be, okay, will there be a flashback of the professor's experience and when did he, come
And
to the point that
yeah,
he would rebel against,
mhm.
the institutional, the academic slash militaristic, overlords,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
rig all this stuff up so they could escape. So it really read like a slice of a sci-fi adventure, but not besides the cursory, oh, we've delved into so much melding of technology and human beings that the soldier is actually surgically constructed to resemble a cyborg, which was an interesting point because uh, uh, the usual vein of this kind of sci-fi is that we create the cyborg to mimic the soldier, but now the soldier is mimicking the cyborg, which was just that was weird, but okay, that's different. And that even the students can elect to have cybernetic enhancements themselves. I think what was it, Herb had an eye or something, his eyes were enhanced so that he could see.
It was too much that he was trying to pack in.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're. A lot of. I could see this as a series, right? Where you could
Yeah.
have time to, you know, uh,
Develop.
enjoy, right, develop and discover, the
Right. Because
motivations of each
there's
character in the big
there's a
story.
love story there going on with Delilah,
Yes.
and so I did kind of appreciate the message of, you know, because he didn't take the step of telling Delilah how he felt about her. He lost her or may have lost her, and that's why he has to have all this angst about it. So I got something out of a message of go for what you want. It's
Um,
very light subtext going on in the story.
Yes. Yes.
it could have been a whole chapter of how he was selected to be there. Could have been a whole chapter on the background of Professor Side because he sounded Oriental That's an Oriental name.
And yes, it's an Asian a scientist. And a lot of these stories, they're so unique that I often go and I look them up to see if, well, does this name mean something, or who is this by? And there is a Professor Sai out there, and some other interesting things I found, I related to was that Sasha means helper in Russian, right? And of course, we know Phobos is fear. Uh Delia.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, like phobia. So that's why that planet is named, it's a Greek
That's
mythology
that's
thing.
intriguing.
And
Let's eat it up.
okay. And Delia is the goddess of fire or poetry, but it could also mean noble and dark. So I was looking to see if he would like bring that in, and make that a thing, but he
I
didn't.
think he got. I think um he didn't have a storyline. I think he had an idea, but
Yeah.
no storyline.
Yeah.
Um, how he got in the book is beyond me. Uh,
PJ,
I'm
I'm glad you're not the editor. You'd be like, oh, trash. Come back when you got something. No.
come back when you have a real story. This is not a story. Um, and it's and I love that's why I said he created new language for science fiction, but he didn't do anything with it.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm always interested. I didn't understand how Delia was in it at all.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was like a sidebar kind of thing.
It wasn't even sidebar. He called the name like 3 times, but
Mhm.
he
We
gave
don't even
her
know what
he
she looked
gave
like.
her he didn't give her form at all.
No.
Herb gave her
Yeah.
form by saying she was a genius, but
Mhm.
that in the world in which the universe in which they were living, hey, everybody was a genius.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
You know, so
So,
Yeah.
this was really a dud as far as I was
hey,
concerned.
PJ, nothing redeeming about it. Okay.
Unless somebody is going to pay me to sit here and think about, okay, what happened to her, what happened to Professor Sai, blah blah blah. I mean, I shouldn't have to be thinking about all those things. and and that was pretty much in all three stories that I had an inkling of that.
mhm, mhm.
um you're going to say that these are the children of Octavia Butler, and you have to show me how. Now,
Okay, I thought you were gonna say they're the
Tanarab,
stepchildren. No.
Tanarab do,
Uh,
she is definitely Octavia Butler's um, spirit child.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, but these are short stories. You
See,
know.
here she come. Here she come.
Hope springs eternal.
But but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Um, I'm always encouraging people to read Octavia Butler because I think it opens up a whole world of thinking for Black people
Yeah.
that 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 we have to constantly be in the trenches of our lives and our possibilities. And if I give this book to my sister who has not read Octavia Butler, they wouldn't want on these three stories. They wouldn't want to read Octavia Butler. They would have no incentive,
Mhm, mhm.
which is why I wouldn't give this book to somebody who I want, I mean, my grandson, excuse me, gave up video games
Wow.
for months and months and months when he was in high school reading Octavia Butler.
Now that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that stuff is
Yeah,
addictive.
well,
Because the video games, there's nothing but fantasy stuff,
Mhm.
you know?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, well, we were all getting our little safety packs. Me and Benita, remember that, Jill?
Oh, oh.
Talking about what we needed to put in our bags to be sitting at the door after Parable of the Sower.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's right. Our bug out bags.
Don't y'all say nothing because I bought the big bag that had the insulation.
Oh, okay. In case radiation would come through and damage your supplies.
my, my shit is in my garage hanging on the thing on the hat rack.
Okay.
Um and I'm serious. I mean, Michelle just done messed me up because it can happen. And I was
Yeah.
caught
Yeah.
in an enemy state just like June.
Hmm.
And I don't run out of June.
Hmm. So what you gonna do?
Um,
I'm gonna turn off the camera here. Let me stop this thing.
I'm I'm seriously thinking.